Welcome students. Today is Monday, January 25th, and our first task of the day will be to complete the retrieval practice document. So I want you to go ahead and click on the retrieval practice link right here. Then you're going to click on the website and complete the document for math for today. Complete your name, first and last name, indicate who your teacher is. And there's a few more questions in here. Some are related to our math and some are not. For the ones that are related to the math, you can go ahead and solve the problems in your notebook and then note your answer on the document by clicking in the bubble. Once you've finished the retrieval document, make sure to click on Submit. So once you've finished, go ahead and click on Submit. So after you've finished with the retrieval document, go ahead and go to your next slide here, and this is the start of our lesson. We are beginning Unit 5. Today is Lesson 1, Blast Off with Equal Shares. So we are starting the unit with fractions, guys. We'll be able to work with fractions. On our next slide is our multiplication table. It's there just as a guide for you. And the next couple of slides are going to be for you to insert your work. So if you're working in your notebook or your binder, to show your work to your teacher. Our learning target for today, I will demonstrate my understanding of fractions as equal shares with a numerator and a denominator. Also, I will create visual models and written explanations to explain my thinking. Our essential questions for this entire unit, and we're just going to continue to build upon them. Why might it be important to understand equivalence? And why is unit size important in mathematics? I've got some vocabulary words right here that are really important that I want you to pause the video and write the vocabulary words and definitions in your notebook. Our first one, equivalent. Having the same value, equal parts. Parts of the whole that are the same size. Fraction, part of the whole that is split into equal parts. Numerator, the top number in a fraction that represents a part. And denominator, the bottom number in a fraction that represents the number of equal parts the whole is broken into. So pause the video and write down each definition word and also the definition. On our next slide, this is called consumed cake. And what we have here is a fraction that's being represented. How much of this cake has been eaten? How much of this cake has been eaten? I want you to pause the video for a minute and I want you to just examine the drawing and try to determine what the fraction is of cake that's been eaten. So you had an opportunity to look at this drawing and try to determine how much of it has been eaten. Now, if you look at the when you look at the drawing, you see that there's only this part has been shaded in. So this part is going to represent how much has been eaten. The entire drawing represents the entire cake, but only the shaded in part represents how much has been shaded in. So for this one, I know that this side has been broken into half, so this is like one of them. This is two. But what you should do is, in order to compare them, they have to be equal. They have to be equal sizes, and you have to make this an equal size by drawing this imaginary line right here. Now, so this makes it 3 parts, 4 equal parts now. So now you have 4 equal parts. So there's only one shaded out of the entire 4. So 1 out of 4 has been shaded, and that is going to be your fraction for this one. Now we're going to move on to our next slide. It's called modeling fractions. Now we're going to use color tiles to model fractions. So you're going to use color tiles to model the following fractions. Now there's a couple different ways that you're going to be able to do this. I have a link to color tiles right here. So if you click on here, you're going to be able to bring up color tiles, and I'll do that in just a second. Now this one is also on the Jamboard. It's on the Jamboard that you'll be able to use a Jamboard to work with, and you also have color tiles in your math manipulatives bag. So you should have color tiles in your math manipulatives bags that were picked up during our last distribution. But for today's purpose, I am going to use the color tiles online here. So what you're going to do is represent these three fractions. You have 1/2, 2/4, and 1/3. These are the fractions that you're going to represent using the color tiles. So when you click on the online color tiles, and we've done this before, this is what you're going to use. So I'm going to pause the video, and I want you to pause, and I want you to go ahead and try to represent those three fractions, the 1/2, 2/4, and the 1/3. Okay, so I've used my online tiles to show you what the fractions look like. So our first one was 1/2, so I've indicated 1/2 right here. So out of these two tiles, one is shaded red. So one out of the two is shaded red. So over here, I've got 4 equal parts. So 2 out of the 4 are shaded red. So 2/4 of them shaded red. Now let's take a look at this particular set of tiles. Now I've taken the same 2 that I had over here, and I've actually broke them apart, and now I have 4 equal parts. I've got 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, 4 part, but out of that same 4 parts, 2 of those parts are shaded red. So this also would make it 2/4. So this would make this one 2/4 shaded red. And over here I have 1 out of the 3 are shaded red. So 1/3 shaded red. So if you see, these tiles here look like this one, and that would actually make these two, that would make them equivalent. So on our next slide, we're going to do some more practice. Equal shares problem. Equal shares problem. So this one, you are going to have an option to work on the Jamboard. So I have a Jamboard that's been assigned to you titled Equal Shares, but this is also on page 131. So you also can work on page 131. And if you work inside of your binder on page 131, remember you have to take a picture of your work and insert a picture of your work into the slide so that your teacher will see your work. So go ahead and let's pull up the Jamboard for today so I can show you the actual page. Okay, so this is the Jamboard for our equal shares problems. And remember, it is the same as page 131. The same as page 131. Let's go ahead and go over these problems. Number 1 says divide the rectangle below into 3 equal parts. So I'm going to go ahead and circle 3 equal parts. Shade some of the parts. So what fraction did you create? So for this one, key term inside there is equal parts. So you know that all your parts have to be equal. Alright, so let's take a look at this one. If you divide into equal parts, that means you're doing the best you can if you're just using your hand. And I would say that this is really close to equal parts. It's not going to be perfect when you're drawing with your hands. But I've got 1 equal part, 2nd equal part, and this is the 3rd equal part. So I got 3 equal parts. Now it says shade some of the parts. Shade some of the parts. So this is your choice here about how many you shade in. But I'm going to go ahead and shade in. See, I'm going to do 2 of them. I'm going to shade in 2 of these parts. And now, what fraction did I create? I created 2/3. So 2/3 of that rectangle has been shaded in. So 2/3 has been shaded in. So you could have chosen a different number. If you shaded in 1 part, it would be 1/3. If you shaded in 3 parts, you could put 3/3 or 1, or just 1 whole is what it would be. Number 2, draw additional lines in the rectangle above to create an equivalent fraction. Draw additional lines in the rectangle above to create an equivalent fraction. So when they say draw additional lines, you're doing just that. You're just drawing additional lines. So I'm going to take my 2/3, and now if you need to draw another rectangle at the bottom down here, that's perfectly fine. You could do that. But I'm just going to draw my lines in here. And let's see, I'm going to take and I'm going to draw 1 line through the middle. So 1 line through the middle. Now, what fraction did I create now? So I've got the same rectangle, but now instead of 3 equal parts, I've divided it up into, I've divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts now. So now I've divided it up into 6 equal parts. So how many out of that 6 is shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 6 is shaded. So this is the new fraction that I've created, 4/6. It's equivalent to my 2/3 from above because the same number of parts have been shaded in. The same amount has been shaded in. That means that they are equivalent. So let's go ahead and go to number 3. And number 3 says Mario has 3 pounds of jelly beans. He and his friends are going to share them equally. So that's a key term right there. They're going to share equally. There are 6 people altogether, including Mario. If everyone gets the same amount with nothing left over, that's key. There's nothing left over. There's no remainder. What is the size of each person's share? Right? So Mario has 3 pounds of jelly beans. So what we're going to do is we're going to represent 3 pounds of jelly bean. That's 1 pound. That's another pound. And that's another pound. So now I have 3 pounds of jelly beans. He and his friends are going to share them equally. There are 6 people altogether. So the number of parts, the number of equal parts that I need are going to be 6. I need 6 equal parts. So how do I divide these all together into 6 equal parts? Well, I just split them in half. 1, 2, 3. Now I have 6 equal parts. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts is what I have now. All right. So if everyone gets the same amount with nothing left over, what is the size of each person's share? Well, there's 6 people. I got 6 equal parts. That seems like a pretty simple number right there. I'm going to shade in what one person would get. So one person would get that, another person would get another person another, another person another. So each person would get the same amount. What I have shaded in is this is what one person would get. So what is the size of each person's share? Well, each person would actually get 1/2 of a pound. So each person would get 1/2 of a pound. And that is our answer for that one. Okay. Number 4. 3 children. Color. 3 children want to share 2 donuts equally. How much of the donuts should each child get? So this is about donuts. So generally donuts are going to be round. So I'm going to draw that I can a couple of donuts, a couple of round donuts. So there are 3 children and they want to share those 2 donuts equally. So how about I divide them into 3, each one into 3 equal parts. So divide them into 3 equal parts as best that I can here. So now it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 equal parts for each donut. So now we got to figure out, okay, so 3 children wants to share 2 donuts equally. How much of the donuts should each child get? So each child, this would be the first child, and the second child would get 2 parts of it. And what about the third child would get 2 parts? So each person would get 2 pieces of the donut. So how much, what's the fraction that represents that? So the first person I've got here in blue, they would get 2/3 of each donut. 2/3 of a donut. And each person would get the same thing. So each person would get 2/3 of a donut, because 2 parts out of this entire 3 is what one person would get. Okay. Remember, you can pause the video as often as you like, guys, as we go along. If you need to go back to, to listen again, then feel free to go back on your video to rewind it. Okay, so we've gone through and we saw this one. Also on the Jamboard, there's a couple of more. What does equivalent mean? I want you to go back to the definitions that you wrote in your notebook, and you're going to put your answer in here for that one. How are these fractions alike? So I want you to compare these two fractions. Just kind of, you can make a drawing, and you can go back to some of the problems we've already worked on today to compare them. How are they alike? And here, how are these fractions different? So there's 2 fractions I have on 1/2 and 3/4. How are they different? And that's our last one for these equal share problems. Okay, for your independent practice, guys, you have this sheet. This is the same as page 135 that I want you to complete. This is also on a Jamboard. So this same sheet I've got on Sharing Pizza handout Jamboard that you can complete on the Jamboard, or if you do it in your notebook, your binder on page 135, make sure to take a picture of your work and insert it into the slides. Now, if you want a little bit of help about how to solve it, I've got here a couple of help buttons that you can click on. So if you click on the help buttons, if you need help with working on the Jamboard, just click here. There's a little short video that can give you some tips on working on the Jamboard. And right here is a help button. If you click on, it'll help you with working on models. And lastly, this just is a reminder of your independent work. Remember, you're finishing up page 135. Either you're doing it on the Jamboard or you're doing it in your math binder. Also, 15 minutes of Dreambox.